Okay. Hello again, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining Dragon Trail International for our April webinar. Today, we're going to be sharing our new Chinese Traveler Sentiment Report, which is based on a survey of more than 1,000 Chinese travelers. The report is getting released today, and so this is your very first chance to see the findings of our survey with data on travel plans for 2025, trip planning channels, perceptions of destinations around the world, attitudes about sustainable travel, and more. My name is Sienna Peroulis-Cook, and I'm Dragon Trail's Director of Marketing and Communications. Joining me today to present the findings of our survey is Dragon Trail's research team with Janice Meng in Shanghai and Tiana Tian in Beijing. We're going to start off the webinar today with a brief update on some of the latest China travel news about the upcoming May Labor Day holiday. And then we will share the findings of our new Chinese Traveler Sentiment Report. The report includes 4 sections: outbound travel in 2025, the traveler journey from inspiration and planning to booking and sharing, destination perception, and sustainable travel. At the end of the presentation, we will open up for a live Q&A session for you to ask any questions that you have about the report, China's outbound travel market, and marketing to Chinese consumers. You can ask questions at any time by using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel, and we will aim to answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. We will be recording today's session, and later today we will send all attendees a link to that recording, as well as all of the webinar slides, so you will have all of the materials from today's session for your own reference in the future, as well as to share with any colleagues who you think might be interested. In case you're attending a Dragon Trail webinar for the first time, I wanted to briefly introduce who we are. Dragon Trail International is a marketing solutions company based in Beijing, and since our founding in 2009, we have focused on marketing for Chinese outbound tourism, working with destinations, attractions, hotels, airlines, retailers, and other travel brands around the world to help them reach Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel trade. Our services include B2C and B2B digital marketing and content creation, offline, virtual, and hybrid events, research and strategy consulting, and market representation in China. You can find lots more information about our services, our clients, case studies of our work, and lots of free resources on Chinese travel and digital marketing on our website, www.dragontrail.com. Established in 2019, Dragon Trail Research is our research arm. We have been conducting Chinese traveler sentiment surveys regularly since the spring of 2020, as well as Chinese travel trade surveys since 2022. In addition to those surveys that we put out publicly, we also offer research services to clients, including bespoke surveys, focus groups, travel trade insights, and more. Okay, so let's start with some news about Chinese outbound travel. One of China's biggest public holidays is coming up next week, with 5 days off for Labor Day from the 1st to the 5th of May. Since it's not as long as the Chinese New Year holiday or the October holiday for National Day, the May holiday is most popular for regional outbound tourism within Asia. But some travelers may also take annual leave at this time, starting from the end of the working day this Friday, the 25th of April. And that way they can enjoy an extended vacation and potentially travel long haul as well. According to OTA data assembled and reported by Beijing Business Today, Japan and South Korea are the hottest outbound destinations. Based on flight bookings, Osaka, Seoul, and Tokyo are the 3 top cities. And then for long-haul travelers, Europe is the most popular region. OTA Tongcheng reported that the top 10 outbound destinations on their platform were all within Asia, including cities in South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. OTA Tunio reported that outbound trips accounted for 28% of their May holiday bookings and 60% of those outbound bookings for group travel products. The Greater China destinations of Hong Kong and Macau were particularly popular, followed by Japan, the Maldives, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Russia, and New Zealand. Tunio's report noted that they have been doing a lot of promotional live streaming programs for the Maldives lately, which has significantly boosted sales of travel to that destination. Finally, Airbnb released a report about May holiday travel, and this is based on searches by Chinese users. They said that the search volume for the May holiday was double what it was last year. And the top 10 countries by search volume were Japan, Italy, France, New Zealand, Spain, South Korea, Thailand, the US, the UK, and Indonesia. Searches for Japan were 3 times as high as they were last year, with arts and culture events helping to boost interest. In Europe, they found that outdoors activities like walking the Camino de Santiago in Spain were particularly popular, as well as beach and island destinations around Southern Europe. As you'll see, this May holiday bookings data lines up really well with the findings of our consumer survey. So now let's find out what Chinese travelers are thinking and planning in terms of outbound travel in 2025. As a bit of background, this is now our 11th Chinese traveler sentiment survey since we've been regularly surveying Chinese consumers about their travel plans and preferences since the spring of 2020. The survey was conducted between the 12th and the 18th of March with 1,022 valid responses. We controlled the demographic makeup of survey respondents to reflect the Chinese outbound tourism market in areas like the male-female ratio, age group, and city of residence. All survey respondents have an interest in traveling, and 62% of them have outbound travel experience from the past. We will share most of the results of the survey here, and you will get a copy of the webinar slides later today, but you can also access the full report for free on the resources section of the Dragon Trail website. So now to get us started with the first part of the report findings, I'm going to turn over to Janice.
Thank you very much, Sienna. I am Janice, and I'm very happy to share with you the first part of our latest survey findings on outbound travel in 2025. So let's start by looking at the outbound travel experiences and plans of Chinese consumers for this year. Our survey results show that by March, 75% of respondents were interested in traveling outbound this year or had already made an outbound trip, marking the highest percentage since we began asking Chinese travelers about their outbound travel plans in December 2022. 7% of respondents had already taken trips outside of mainland China, 26% said they had outbound trips already booked, and a further 42% said they hoped to travel outbound this year but hadn't booked yet. These numbers have all increased comparing to 1 year ago, showing increasing intention of Chinese travelers to explore beyond mainland China. The proportion of Chinese travelers to saying they definitely would not travel outbound this year also dropped from 10% in spring 2024 to 5% this year. It's worth noting that almost all of the respondents who had already traveled outbound in 2025 still intended to travel more during the rest of the year. Next, let's look closer at the destination choices of the 75% of survey respondents who have already taken or have intentions to take outbound travel in 2025. At the top of the list of destinations visited on respondents' most recent outbound trips are Macau, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, and Thailand, which are all within Asia. These 5 destinations also rank high for trips that survey respondents plan to take later during the remainder of the year, as is Singapore. And on the other hand, destinations that are further away from China, such as Australia, Austria, Russia, and the Maldives, also saw increasing popularity among Chinese consumers for trips already taken or planned to take in 2025. The preference for regional travel is more obvious when looking at world regions for respondents' outbound travel in 2025. 70% of survey respondents have traveled within Asia on their most recent outbound trips, and 68% were planning to visit Asian destinations, which are even higher than 67% and 60% respectively 1 year ago. Another region of growing interest to Chinese travelers is Oceania, ranking just behind Europe. In addition to the traditionally popular Oceania destinations of Australia and New Zealand, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Guam are also on Chinese travelers' wish lists for future travel in 2025. Next, let's take a look at when Chinese travelers are most likely to take outbound trips in the upcoming 12 months. The 2-month summer vacation through July and August is no doubt the most favored period for outbound travel, selected by 54% of respondents. Another 45% said they plan to travel outbound during the National Day and Mid-Autumn Festival holiday. With 8 days off this year, from the 1st to 8th October, this Golden Week is one of the largest public holidays in China and usually attracts more long-haul outbound trips by Chinese travelers. As Sienna has shared in the beginning of today's webinar, the 5-day May Labor Day Golden Week, which is taking place next week, is another peak season for outbound travel, chosen by around a quarter of our survey respondents. To understand why travelers had taken or planned to take outbound trips in 2025, we asked them to select up to 3 most important travel purposes. As in our past surveys, relaxation continues to be the primary reason selected by 64% of respondents. This signals the importance for overseas destinations or brands to embody emotional values in marketing and product design for the Chinese market. Various activities and experiences, such as immersing in local culture, trying local food, and nature or outdoor adventure are also on the top of the list. In addition, 22% of respondents considered family travel to be the priority for their outbound travel. And now to present the next section of Traveler Journey, I will turn over to Tiana.
Thanks, Janice. In this part, let's take an in-depth look at the Chinese outbound travelers' digital journey from inspiration, information searching to booking and sharing. We served experienced Chinese outbound travelers to identify their preferred platforms and information sources at different stages of travel journey, revealing distinct preferences for each part of the journey. Where do Chinese outbound travelers get inspiration from? Our survey results shows Chinese social media apps such as Xiaohongshu and Douyin are the most important source of destination inspiration. Half of Chinese outbound travelers get inspiration from them. 39% of Chinese outbound travelers get inspiration about outbound destinations from friends, family, and other acquaintances. 30% of survey respondents was inspired by content discovered through online travel agencies. When searching information and planning their trips, Ctrip is the most widely used outbound destination information channel among Chinese outbound travelers, especially among 45 to 65 age group, with 76% of them choosing it. Meanwhile, Xiaohongshu, also known as Rhinos, is the most preferred destination information channel among young travelers, with 79% of those in the 80 to 24 age group and 71% in the 25 to 34 age group choosing it. 64 of Chinese outbound travelers start planning their trip 1 to 3 months in advance, When planning a trip, safety is the key factor that Chinese outbound travelers care about most, chosen by 41% of survey respondents. Local cuisine, local location, and the choice of accommodation, experiences, and attractions are also important concerns when planning a trip. Now let's talk about booking. Chinese online travel agencies are the most preferred channel for survey respondents to book outbound travel, with Ctrip strongly in the lead. 71% purchase full travel packages and 66% book flights and hotels through this OTA. 35% of survey respondents use social media platforms to book comprehensive travel packages, while the use of social media platforms for booking individual travel products is lower, at 21% for flights and hotels and 22% for other individual travel products like car rentals and attraction tickets. 94% of surveyed Chinese outbound travelers have the habit of sharing their travel experiences online. Most share more than one post during their trip, with 34% of survey respondents sharing their experiences every day while traveling. The top 3 platforms for sharing are WeChat Moment, chosen by 52% of survey respondents, followed by Xiaohongshu, also called as RightNote, chosen by 47% of survey respondents, and Douyin, 45% of respondents choosing it. The travel stories and guides they share on social media then become super useful references for other travelers. So that's all for the travel journey part. Let's turn over to Sienna.
Oh, thank you, Tiana. So we've already seen some destination-related data about where travelers have been and plan to go in the rest of 2025. But here we have some additional information about interest levels in different world regions, as well as how safe survey respondents think it is to travel to different destinations around the world. So we asked survey respondents to rank world regions on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being extremely interested in visiting and 1 being not interested at all. For the first time since 2023, when we first introduced this question into our surveys, Northeast Asia surpassed Europe to be the most coveted travel destination, with a score of 3.87. Southeast Asia is the only region with a score that's lower than it was 1 year ago, declining to 3.37 from 3.53. But it's still ranked 3rd, as it has always been every time we've done the survey. Comparing the scores from last spring to the ones in this survey, Africa has seen the biggest gains in terms of percentage increase. But Latin America, Oceania, and North America all have scores that are more than 10% higher than they were a year ago. So we can see that interest in almost every region continues to increase as time goes on, indicating a growing willingness to travel outside of mainland China after the prolonged isolation of the COVID years. We also see the sustained positive shift in perceptions when we look at how safe travelers think it is to various destinations around the world. Nearly every country on our list is seen as safer now than it was in August 2024, which was the last time we did the survey. Singapore's rating has declined very slightly, but it's still higher than it was at the same time last year. New to the spring survey, we added Brazil, Russia, Kenya, and Vietnam to the questionnaire. Just a reminder, we will be sending out these slides to everybody later, so you'll be able to look at all of the data a little bit more slowly than we're going through it right now. At the bottom of the rankings, Southeast Asian countries, Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia seem to be suffering from the impacts of organized crime in the region, with Thailand's safety rating continuing to decline. More than half of travelers now said that this top destination is unsafe, up from 38% last year and 28% in December 2022. So now to dive a little bit deeper into these safety perception trends, I prepared a few extra slides exclusively for the webinar to examine how Chinese travelers' safety perceptions have changed over time. As I mentioned, we have been doing these surveys since the spring of 2020, and we've included questions about destination safety in most of our surveys since March 2021. So there are a number of destinations that have been included every time we do the survey to ask about safety. So now we can really see the long-term evolution of consumer sentiment. So on this slide, we're starting with 4 different destinations that all have a similar pattern, which says a lot about how Chinese travelers have been thinking about traveling abroad in general, because all of these destinations are quite spread out around the world. So on these graphs, the blue line that you can see is the percentage of respondents who said the destination was safe to travel to, and the red line is those who say that the destination is unsafe to travel to. And then there's also a gray line for those who said they were unsure, and unsure was included as a choice for survey respondents starting from the September 2021 survey. So for the UK, France, Australia, and Japan, we see that all 4 of these destinations were seen as really unsafe, with very low safe rankings during China's zero COVID era. Then something changes very significantly between December 2022 and September 2023. What happened at that time was that China reopened for non-essential travel starting in January 2023, with outbound group travel and flight capacity all coming back gradually in the months that followed. At the same time, the red line comes down and the blue line goes up for all 4 of the countries. And then the safety ratings have stayed fairly consistent and actually improved slightly for each of the 4 countries since then. Now, on this next slide, we're going to look at 3 countries that have not quite followed that same pattern. The first one is Singapore, and this really stands out for almost always being perceived as safe, or at least more safe than unsafe. Singapore's unsafe rating peaked at 30% in September 2021, and the unsafe rating has been in the single digits for the last 4 surveys that we've conducted. This excellent safety rating is definitely one factor behind Singapore's post-pandemic popularity among Chinese travelers. Next is Thailand. This is still a top outbound travel destination for Chinese tourists, but it has been recovering much more slowly than Singapore, Malaysia, or Japan. Here, we never see a point at which the blue and the red lines cross, and Thailand is actually perceived now as being more unsafe than it was during the peak pandemic years, because this perception is related more to crime now than it is to public health. Thailand's rating in our current survey is actually one of its worst scores ever, following the rescue in Thailand of a Chinese actor just before Chinese New Year this year, who had been kidnapped by a human trafficking gang. Finally, we have the United States, and this is a country that has seen the highest unsafe ratings of any country in our survey, with a high of 87% unsafe in September 2021. It's taken longer than for other destinations, but that rating has been steadily improving. And this survey is the first time where the blue safe line has crossed the red unsafe line, with 35% of survey respondents saying it was safe to travel to the US and just 26% saying it was unsafe, although 39% said they were unsure. However, the survey was conducted a few weeks before the most recent tariffs were announced by US President Trump, which has increased tensions between China and the US. And earlier this month, the Chinese government issued an official safety warning for travelers planning to go to the US. So we will have to see how perceptions of travel to the US continue to evolve in future surveys. Now, given how important safety is for Chinese travelers, what kinds of factors or actions can positively impact their safety perceptions for outbound travel? Survey responses reveal that the importance of official advice and initiatives from both Chinese authorities and destination governments. 54% said that travel safety assessments by Chinese authorities would make them feel safe, and 51% wanted to see initiatives to improve safety by local authorities in the destination. Positive information on social media and traditional media both impacted around 1/4 of travelers, while 28% felt safer in destinations with good medical and public health services. Now, the last section of our survey focuses on sustainable travel, which is a very popular and important topic, but it's one that can also be a bit unclear within the travel industry as well as for consumers. We really wanted to gain an understanding of what sustainable travel means to Chinese consumers and what actions they are taking or would be willing to take to travel more sustainably. The first important thing to understand is what the term sustainable travel even means to Chinese travelers. And our survey findings highlight a very important difference in the definition of this concept in China compared to in the West. In China, the concept of sustainability is tied more closely to the economic and cultural well-being of local communities rather than to the local or global natural environment. Only 38% of survey respondents said they associated sustainable travel with cutting carbon emissions. Instead, 72% said that sustainability was about respecting local lifestyles, traditions, and cultures while traveling, and 61% thought about the positive impact of tourism on sustaining local economies. I've also noticed this different understanding of sustainability for many years when looking at initiatives from the Chinese travel website Chongyou, for example. Their responsible travel guide and responsible travel advice in their area guides mostly focuses on how to be culturally sensitive. Also Ctrip, although they do put out information about carbon reduction targets, their information about sustainability also focuses quite a lot on rural revitalization. Also recently, I watched an interview with a Chinese travel buyer at ITB that was shared on LinkedIn, and they asked in the interview about sustainable travel, and his whole answer was about empowering rural communities to earn money through tourism, with no mention at all about the environmental impact. So I think that understanding this different approach to the topic of sustainability is essential to engaging in meaningful dialogue about sustainable travel with Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel industry. 43% of survey respondents said they had engaged in sustainable travel, with 15% of them saying they regularly do, and another 28% saying they occasionally do. So when we look specifically at this group, the 43% who have engaged in sustainable travel, they're more likely than the average survey respondent to be considering low carbon choices such as taking public transport, protecting local wildlife, and reducing waste and avoiding disposable items like toiletries or plastic water bottles. But they also brought up respect for local communities and cultures. 79% of our survey respondents said they were willing to pay more for sustainable travel products or services. However, that doesn't mean they're willing to pay a lot more. Around half would be willing to pay up to 5% extra. Just 10% are willing to pay more than 10% extra for travel products or services that are sustainable. Although 42% of survey respondents said they thought the higher cost of sustainable travel products were a barrier to purchase, product availability and access were seen as bigger impediments. Half said that sustainable travel products were lacking clear labels, and 44% said they didn't know how to find sustainable travel products, and the choices of these products were too limited. A majority said they hoped travel agencies could offer more attractive sustainable travel products and services, and a richer selection of products and services. So that brings us to the end of our survey results and time to review 6 of the top takeaways. First, Chinese travelers' intentions to travel outbound continue to increase. We have seen a continuous increase in outbound travel intention among Chinese consumers over the past several years. As of mid-March 2025, when we conducted this survey, 75% of survey respondents were interested in traveling outbound this year or had already made an outbound trip. This is the highest percentage since we started asking Chinese travelers about their outbound travel plans in December 2022. Second, most of these trips in 2025 will be within Asia. Hong Kong, Macau, Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and Singapore all ranked highest for trips already taken in 2025 or that travelers plan to take later in the year. The proportion of survey respondents traveling within Asia is even higher than 1 year ago, and Northeast Asia has surpassed Europe to be the most coveted travel destination. But at the same time, interest in travel to all world regions has also grown since last year. Third, perceptions of safety have improved for almost every destination included in our survey. However, safety perceptions for Thailand have declined, and Vietnam and Cambodia also received relatively low safety scores. It's likely that worries about organized crime in the region is an important factor behind survey respondents' decreasing interest in travel to Southeast Asia. Fourth, there is a generational divide when it comes to destination information sources. Ctrip is the most widely used channel for outbound destination information among Chinese outbound travelers, especially for the 45 to 65-year-old age group. But among travelers aged 18 to 34, Xiaohongshu, also known as RedNote, is actually ranking higher as a source of destination information. Fifth, social connections and social media inspire Chinese outbound travelers. Friends, family, and other acquaintances are important sources of inspiration and second only to social media. Moreover, 94% of travelers share their own travel experiences online, providing valuable reference information to others. Destinations should consider how to best leverage this user-generated content to attract future visitors. Finally, in China, the concept of sustainability places greater emphasis on communities rather than carbon emissions. This understanding of sustainable travel is also important to consider as we reimagine how we want tourism to develop and improve in the future. As I mentioned before, we will be sharing today's presentation slides with everyone later today, as well as a link to read and download the full April 2025 Chinese Traveler Sentiment Report. But if you can't wait to see it, it is available already on the resources section of the Dragon Trail website. Also on the resources section of the site, you will find a sentiment reports tab where you can access all of our past sentiment reports and travel trade survey reports. In addition to these reports, our free online resources include videos, Chinese social media rankings for international tourism brands, marketing case studies and guides, and much more. You can sign up for our newsletter for monthly updates and future webinar invitations, and follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and WeChat. Now, finally, before I open up to Q&A, I wanted to let you know about next month's webinar, which is coming up on Wednesday, the 21st of May. We will be joined by a guest speaker from one of China's leading OTAs, Fliggy, who will share exclusive data on Chinese independent travelers' bookings for outbound trips this summer. I'll send a link to register for that webinar later today when we send out the presentation slides and the recording, and you can also find the details and registration link on the event section of the Dragon Trail website. So now we're ready to start taking your questions, and you can send those in by using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel.